And when we look at that budget, what we see is literally we're going to run up a $2 trillion deficit under this budget framework. And we're not doing that in an effort to keep hospitals open in the state of Alabama. We're not doing that in an effort to expand healthcare access in the state of Alabama. We're not doing that in an effort to prevent Tuskegee from having to offer its entry-level police officers $15 an hour to run into, situations of danger and being shot at. We're not doing that to expand infrastructure investments and create jobs in the state of Alabama. We're not doing that to create salary levels for service members so that they don't still qualify for SNAP benefits, even though they've signed up to die for this country. We're not doing that for those people. We're not doing that to invest in teachers and social workers and law enforcement, first responders. We're not doing that for the people who need it most.
All right, welcome in Alabama Politics this week. Josh Moon, David Person. How are you, David?
Feeling good, man. How about you?
Sorry, I didn't. We've basically done a whole show at this point.
Yeah,
and in the whole show that we've done, I've introduced you. I've done that same thing, and so normally I let you introduce yourself, and now I've just done it.
Yeah.
We can go back if you want to. Whatever you'd like to do.
No, we're good.
Okay. Sorry, we've got
done a whole show spread out over 2 days too.
That's right.
The other thing, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So this is Alabama Politics this week, and we are brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. With the fine folks at Wind Creek who sponsor this thing. We really appreciate them and what they do. David and I both stayed in the Wind Creek facilities in recent times, and they were both fantastic stays. And we had a great time. Had a great dinner at Fire. Spent a little bit of money in the casino. Had a good time playing some games down there. I have not partaken in the spa, but I have talked to many of people who have, and they love it. And
beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah, it is top level.
But I got a nice tour, and it was nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's man, it's rated, very, very highly among the 8 little folks that go about and rate those things, as are the restaurants and the amenities and things around. And they do a great job there. Go and stay. They're at Moore, Wetumpka and Montgomery. Go book a stay. Get your wife. If you screwed up Valentine's Day, it's still not too late to make up for that. You get yourself out of the doghouse, book a stay and a spa day and a nice dinner. You won't regret it. Or you could just do it to be nice. You could just do it to be nice. Book yourself up over there. You're going to have a good time too. It's not like it's going to be a bad time for you either. There's plenty to do, lots of things around there. Have yourself a good time and let those folks take care of you like they do us. We really have enjoyed having them as a sponsor, and I've heard from them. They like it as well. And it's just, we don't do anything different than what we were doing. And that's really nice. So, all righty. Let's get into Crow. We got a good show. As we have mentioned, we've done this. We've done a couple of interviews already before we ever did the open to this thing, and so we have both of our Democratic Congress people on with Terri Sewell and Shamari Figures to talk about what's taking place in D.C. Right now, and what Democrats are kind of doing to make the world less insane. And so look forward to those. They're good. Shamari goes on a nice little run that is really one of the most well put and eloquent little speeches that I've heard in a while. And Terri Sewell is fired up like you've never. You don't hear it very often. You don't hear it very.
Yeah.
She's reserved. She's she's a very polished, reserved, professional person that handles her job responsibilities in a manner in which you can always be proud of. And man, she was hot. She was hot. She was not happy with it, and is not happy with some things. And so, they're worth listening to. All right, before we get to them though, let's talk about some things going on in the state. We have our own legislature doing their own dumb things, and let's start with this bill. There's a bill. There have been a couple of them to introduce the 10 Commandments into classrooms. There's another one that that imposed this ideas. I think this is from Reed Ingram, of all people. That was going to force schools to sing the national anthem, or it was the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry, because I'm sorry, I'm getting them confused because there's so
Yeah.
many of these dumbass things that it's
Mhm.
really hard, because of all the things that when you actually go into a school and you think, oh, these guys need supplies and toilet papers and more teachers and more books and more desks and more resources like that, and nobody with a working brain ever walks into one and says, it's all but playing the national anthem every morning. And because there is a bill to play the national anthem every morning. There's a bill to put the Ten Commandments in there. There's another bill that's going to make them uh, recite the Pledge of Allegiance every single morning and have a Judeo-Christian prayer. I,
Huh.
I don't, man, what?
So there's just so much about this that is wrong, and I'm going to just say patently offensive to me as a Christian who prays multiple times a day, who goes to church, who reads my Bible every day. This is still offensive to me, and the reason is that it is an attempt to do something that, based on my belief system, I would say God does not do himself, which is impose beliefs on human beings. I believe in a God who allows us to worship or not, who allows us to conceptualize him as him or her or something else, a God who does not interfere with our actions as human beings to engage with divinity or not. And yet, for some strange, bizarre reason, the people that lead our state believe that there needs to be an imposition of faith on people, how that will make us better. When has that ever worked? It's never worked. In fact, let's just go on and keep it real. Those of us who are church-going people and who have been going to church, Christian churches, most of our lives or all of our lives, know there's a whole lot of mess that goes on in Christian churches. We've seen it publicly spill out into the public with the Southern Baptists and their sexual issues, the Roman Catholics and their sexual issues. And I guarantee you, if you look at your denomination, and I can certainly look at my denomination, Seventh-day Adventist, and point to scandals. I mean, come on. The imposition of faith doesn't work, because even when people voluntarily choose to engage in a practice of faith, we're still human beings with weaknesses and challenges. So there is no justification logically for this, as though somehow posting the Ten Commandments or forcing children to pray Judeo-Christian prayers, and Josh, I didn't even know about that one. There's no guarantee at all that that's going to change characters or make people better. Child molesters go to church, thieves go to church, adulterers go to church, spouse abusers go to church. We all know this. So what are we trying to do here? What do we think we're accomplishing? Nothing other than giving the government a way to further undercut the free will and the choices of people to live, in a way that freedom truly suggests we should be able to live, which is on our own terms as long as we don't violate the rights of others.
The response back from people whenever you challenge them on this, and I heard Reed Ingram when he talked about this, the prayer bill, and and the Ten Commandments thing is, does it hurt? Does it hurt? Who does it hurt? Who does this hurt? Well, okay, ask those same people. All right, will you be willing then, instead of having this Judeo-Christian prayer every day, have a Judeo-Christian prayer once a week, and then on the other days you have prayers from other faiths? Ask them that. Ask them if that's what they want, because who would it hurt? Who would it hurt? You know, these other faiths, they all have good qualities. You know, they're all basically based on the same, sentiment of morals and doing right, and and trying to get to a better place after you die and all that. That's mostly the goal here. Okay, and listen, and I don't want to hear anything about how these other ones have flaws, because I mean, when you start talking about talking snakes and pillars of salt, then yours has got some as well. Okay, you've got some fantastical stories in there as well that you believe. That's fine. I'm not telling you not to believe. I'm not telling you. I'm not making fun of anything. All I'm saying is when these people start talking about others, you've got your own. That's and a matter of fact, there's a lesson in there about not was it the plank in your eye or whatever.
Yeah, Jesus.
About
Yeah,
and so
Jesus saying, yeah. Hmm.
you know, but at the same time, what really, really irritates me about the whole thing are these people like Reed Ingram and like some others who put these, but Mac Butler is one. It's always that they insist on this notion of this is a Christian nation. This is a Christian nation. We're built on this. And look, we're not. We're not, okay? They made it plain from the very beginning and the outset of this place. Every single page in which they wrote our Bill of Rights and the Constitution, they were all blank. And those dudes sat in rooms for months working these things out and trying to figure out what to do and compromising and talking back and forth. And the thing that they settled on, the thing that has kept us safe and has kept this place as free as it is, and so you don't have to worry about bombs and stuff going off like they do in other countries, is the fact that we do not respect any one religion over another. Okay? We don't. Now, in theory, okay, in theory. Yeah, of course, we all know that doesn't necessarily hold up. The Christian faith has its advantages here because there's such a large number of people who practice that faith and all that. Well, look, we have Christmas parades. We don't have a whole lot of Jewish parades. Okay, we just, you know what I mean. And so we know that there are advantages that are built in that everybody has just come to accept along the way, but because they don't necessarily hurt anything, and a lot of people, whatever, and the other folks that don't necessarily practice, they just accepted some of these things as parties or whatever, and all that's fine, and nobody wants to stop you from doing any of this stuff, but we don't want you to try to stop others. And if there's some kids in your classroom who don't practice this, imagine that you're the one little Christian kid in there that's doing this, and it's not the way it was built. And this idea that you insist upon these people, oh no, it's because look, it says in God we trust, right on our money.
Yeah.
That's dumb, man. It's a dumb
Well,
concept because we see what's there.
yeah. And also, people should understand, as I think you have rightly alluded to, the references to God were generic. John Meacham points this out in one of his books. There's this concept of sort of public religion, and so there's the general consensus that there is. And this was there among some of the founders, not all of them, interestingly enough, but among some of the founders of this country, that there was a divinity. But that divinity, that concept of divinity, was not uniform, nor was it necessarily in the minds of all the founders Christian. In fact, as I've pointed out on this podcast before, it's documented that Thomas Jefferson tried to create a version of the Bible or not tried to, he actually did create his own version of the Bible, presumably for himself, where all of the miracles of Jesus, he tore out the pages where the miracles of Jesus were in there, which I think is a clear statement that Thomas Jefferson was saying he didn't believe in the divinity of Christ. So, say Thomas Jefferson was a Christian. Not if he's tearing out pages of the Bible that deal with the divinity of Jesus. Come on, doesn't make any sense. Another problem that we have here is that, there is, I think, a documented history again of how when religion and government come together, it inevitably leads to the efforts of government to try to, by force, to impose beliefs and practices on people. It's throughout history. In fact, it is even an instance recorded in the Bible. Those who actually know the Bible know that there's the story in the book of Daniel about Nebuchadnezzar, who decided at one point that he wanted all of the people of the nation of Babylon to worship this idol that was set up in the plain of Dura. And that was an imposition. That was government, a king, trying to impose faith on a population that is widely believed to have been culturally diverse, religiously diverse, but he didn't care. Who ended up being affected by it the most? According to that story, to that biblical story, Josh, it was three of Daniel's closest friends, the prophet Daniel's closest friends. They ended up, because they would not bow down, they were thrown in a furnace. That is the ultimate quintessential example in the Bible of the imposition of faith in a way that was negative and could have gotten people killed if you believe the Bible, except for the fact that there was a divine miracle that happened. But I'm saying, even if you don't believe in the Bible and you don't believe in the divinity of Christ or don't even believe in God, even in the Bible, it's pretty clear, based on that story alone, that there is something wrong when government tries to impose a belief system, a religious belief population of people.
For just a second there, I really thought you were going to ask me who did that affect most, and I was like, does he want me to answer this? But then you said that the three people. Now let me ask you this: was this the Shadrach group?
Yeah, Shadrach, Meshach,
Yeah,
and
look at there. I
Abednego.
would have got it. Yeah, I would have got it. How about that?
Yeah,
How about that? I would have got it. Yeah, those little Bible studies my mom made me go to when I was little paid off.
Right.
Yes, she just wanted the mom's day out.
Right.
No, listen, it it bugs me in so many ways. One of the most is that uh, if you're going to try to force this the Christianity on people, then you should at least practice what you're trying to force on folks, and do right by the least of people, and attempt to follow that. And if you're not, it really rings a very hollow, and it rings exactly as it is, and that's that you're just a shield trying to get votes from people cheaply, that don't recognize the dangers of going down this path of introducing these things and headed down this path. There's a reason why those things were left blank. I mean, there's a reason why on the blank pages of our that became our Constitution and Bill of Rights that they decided to go this way. The very first amendment was one in which they included the fact that we're not going to respect any other religion over these. Okay. And I'm not downing Christianity in any way, in any way, shape, or form, at all. I mean, God bless you. I think most of the teachings of that they're fantastic, for people and the morals that are taught and things. And I do think, as you pointed out, there are some instances in which maybe some folks have used those things throughout the course of time to justify some really horrible actions against people, against whole groups of people. You see it even still today, as people try to justify the way that they disenfranchise and marginalize various groups of people. And if you read through any of the red portions that Thomas Jefferson was ripping out, that those run counter to most of those teachings, and so uh, that I get irritated a lot with people because they talk about the liberal things and trying to force liberal ideas, and the only thing that I can tell that liberals have ever actually asked anybody to do, or progressives or whoever, is to treat people with dignity and respect. And and to give people what is guaranteed by the Constitution, and that's the rights of the there. If you have the rights, and everyone else should have the same rights as you. And and that I've never understood why that's so damn hard for some people, but it apparently is. And these things here are really, they are offensive. They're offensive to any person with a thinking, that likes to think about stuff, or can read and comprehend what's going on, and who knows the history. The fact that they're trying to, that such a scheme to pull this over on people is really, it's really offensive to me. Like somebody like Reed Ingram, he's not a dummy. Reed Ingram's not a dummy. He knows that this is what he's saying is completely untrue, and he's doing it because he's trying to con people, and that's all there is to it. He's trying to con people into this ignorant belief of things. I'm just trying to return things to back the way they were when we were kids. You know what? There's a lot of people that didn't do so well when you were kids, Reed. And but it just, I don't know. I wanted to get to one other thing. Before we close out here and get to the interviews and stuff, and that was there's been an argument for months now over the Veterans Administration, and what has taken place. And you know there's a bill right now that they're about to vote on in the House that would kind of reshape the it wouldn't really reshape the board. No, but it changes the governance of the board that runs our Veterans Administration. The Alabama Department of Veterans Affairs Board has had oversight of the commissioner. They selected a commissioner, put him in place. The governor served on that board. Well, then Ivey got into a bit of a bickering with the outgoing, who did not know he was outgoing when the fight started, but was outgoing, Kent Davis. And so it led to this whole fight over this stuff, and she wanted Kent Davis gone because of a whole convoluted mess of stuff that I'm not going to get into right now, because it would take an hour. And so an hour to properly tell everybody what's going on and not leave things out. And so we'll just say, let's just start at the point where she wanted to fire Kent Davis. The important part is she wanted Kent Davis to be fired. The board did not want Kent Davis to be fired. They took a look at her request and said, no, we're not going to do that. And she called it a defiance of the governor or whatever. And, really it was just the board saying, we're not going to do that. I kind of, I get Kay Ivey's beef here to a certain extent. She didn't like the way Kent Davis had handled something, and she wanted him to, she wanted somebody else in that spot. Okay. Whatever, whether you agree or disagree, she's the governor and she's used to having that power. In this case, she didn't. And so now they want to change that board, and they want to make the commissioner's spot a cabinet position that serves at the pleasure of the governor, meaning the governor could, hire and fire or whatever, whenever it called for. And the board is like, well, no, if you do that, there's no reason to have a board. We're the people that provide oversight of the commissioner. I had a nice long chat with Major General Michael Summerall the other day, and Summerall is a very, very accomplished guy, and he does a lot of work now that he's retired from service with veterans organizations and stuff. And he talked about sort of the intricacies that take place within the Veterans Administration and handling things. And he used some examples of, they had one where there was a female veteran who was living on the beach with her 3 kids. They found out about it. They went and got some resources together. They had pulled from different groups very quickly, working with the VA, working with these volunteer organizations to get her into a place where she could stay for a while until she got back on her feet with her kids, make sure her kids were taken care of. There's another one where a veteran had committed suicide and left behind 3 kids and his wife, and they were able to put some things together really fast to help her. And they found another Army captain living under a bridge in Mobile, and worked to get the help. And it said, when we do these things, you've got to coordinate pretty quickly with folks, and you got to know who to call. You got to know what to do, how to go about it, who to talk to, what hoops you're going to have to jump through, how to get around the hurdles that are going to be put in your way, and all that. And what this board does, it's made up of people from these various organizations, and they best know how to handle these things. They do it all the time. And so they know the people that they feel like they can trust in a position that's going to lead the entire VA to help them. And so that's why it's important that we have some say in who does this and who's going to be in that job. And he just essentially they wanted a compromise with the governor, and said, "Look, we get your problem. We're not saying anything bad about you, and we don't think that what you." And he said to me, "I don't think that what Kay Ivey is going to do and who she's going to appoint is going to be a bad person, but 15 years from now, down the line somewhere, when this thing is just another political appointment that the governor makes, is it going to start going to the best donor or somebody's friend or somebody's nephew, and then all of a sudden it's not this person that knows these ins and outs, and this person then becomes a hindrance instead of a helpful hand in situations like we're talking about." And I just don't understand why that can't happen. I don't understand why the governor couldn't have the ability to fire this person, but at the same time, accept from these folks a list of names that she could choose from, or him, the next governor, whoever, a list of names that they could choose from. Give them 5, give them 10, however many, and let them choose, a person from that list to be the next person. I mean, honest to God, until this happened, who cared who the VA commissioner was?
It's a common sense solution, and I liked it as I read your column. I liked the solution that you put forward. I think it really puts it creates the best of both worlds. The governor can certainly have the power to make a change, but the governor also can draw on the collective wisdom and resources that board represents to get the best possible person in the job at any point in time.
Yeah.
And I like it. I think it's a common sense solution.
No, I feel like that we constantly undersell these guys, or underperform for these folks that they're our veterans, and we make a lot of promises, and we're not very good at keeping them, and I feel like that the problems that you see with most veterans are things that we caused, in the service that they provided us. That's what put them in these fragile mental states. It's what led to the situations that they're in. It's why an Army captain is living under a bridge, and we owe them to be the best that we can be. And I think, more so than just a simple compromise over politics, I think it's the best pathway, to make sure that happens. And, and that's my only real interest in this. The fight and everything else, it's what it is. And I don't know. I wish that something could get done in that way, and make sure that these folks are a little better covered. So, all right, let's slide out. Got some good interviews coming up. Y'all enjoy that, and we'll come back in just a few minutes and wrap this thing up. We're on the other side of Shamari Figures and Terri Sewell. So, all right, it's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. We're back in a minute. Welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Boone, David Person, and we are happy now. When things are going crazy in the nation, and especially in D.C., it's always nice to try to find the sanest, most rational people to talk to about it. And we go to the hardest working rep in the country, and that is our representative from Alabama, Representative Terri Sewell. Thank you for coming on and hopefully restoring some sanity to the world for a little bit.
Well, it's been a whirlwind. 4 weeks?
Yeah, right.
If I had to say one word, it's been a little chaotic. Chaos definitely is running rampant around. But I know, we're about to take a really important resolution vote on a budget that's coming down. And so the opportunity just to talk with you all about what that means for the folks back home, I think is really important. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sure. No, thank you. Kind of, I was kind of joking about it, but also serious. I mean, we know that you are plugged in better than pretty much anybody, and I guess for someone who's been there for a little while, I just a broad overview. What have the last 4 weeks? I mean, it's from the outside looking in, it seems just insanity. It has ruled. What is it like there on the ground?
It's chaotic, frankly, and, I think that the real hard part is that nobody wants waste, fraud, and abuse. You know that. Everybody wants, government to run efficiently, but this seems so haphazard, there's a way to do this. I mean, you should go in and study it for a minute, make sure that you are, actually getting rid of that which is wasteful and that which is abusive or inefficient, but to just do a sledgehammer approach and just turn off the spigot and then just wait to find out what was necessary and what was not necessary is just not the way to run not just your own not just the government, but your own individual budget, your own personal life, your own business. So it's been a bit chaotic, and frankly the fact that I had a telephone town hall because it was hard to go home for the first couple of weeks, and over 20,000 people was on the line. And at the very end of our hour, almost 3,000 remained on the line for the whole hour. It just goes to show you how concerned people are, how people are thirsty for information, really want to understand what's going on and how it's going to affect them directly. And I think that the hard part for me has been just listening to the stories of folks who had jobs and now don't have jobs. And just recently, we found out today that over 100 folks from Social Security were let go. And behind every cut like that is someone's livelihood and a service that has to be rendered that may not get rendered now because that person's no longer there. So every
Yeah.
cut,
Yeah.
you cut 5,000. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's also the callousness of it, the way that they have talked about federal employees, the way that they have castigated them and vilified them in a number of different ways, and that's what I wanted to ask you about. After having that town hall, and I've spoken to a lot of people here, and I mean people are fired up. Do you think that there is a real sense now among Republicans, among the Republican colleagues that you talk to, maybe the more sane ones, that they're in some trouble over this?
Well, look, I mean, my phone has been ringing off the hook. I can only imagine that their phones must be ringing off the hook. I know we don't send ours to voicemail. I truly believe that if folks are calling us, we should be answering the phones, and so there's no reprieve in my offices in that way. And so I can tell you that folks are just really concerned about what these slashing and what's going on is going to directly impact them. As you said, I was in Tuscaloosa for a town hall. Really, we called it a community roundtable where I had folks from the VA, from the community health center, folks from the housing authority, and federal employees that represent both the VA and Social Security on a panel with me, just talking about what their day to day is like and what these cuts will mean to them. And I think that there was a collective gasp when the director of Maud Watley Community Health Center in Tuscaloosa said that, 90% of their salaries come from the federal government. And so the
Yes.
reality is that,
Wow.
they miss federal government funds, and we're talking about less people there to provide health care for the most vulnerable in our society. As you know, Maud Watley is a federally qualified community health center, and they
Okay.
are there to serve the public, irrespective of ability to pay. And so these are really important programs. Or when the housing authority person talk to us about the fact that affordable housing is hard to find normally, and
Hmm.
when you start making cuts, you're making cuts to people's ability to actually have housing at all, and what that means to our community. And so, Doge, this, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but I mean,
Oh.
I've been calling it doggy, but anyway, Doge, they fired over 200,000 federal workers. And,
Hmm.
that firing has affected the ability to do the work at the veterans hospitals. I mean, when you think about the fact that 30% of the VA are made up of veterans themselves, so that here you have people who are employed at the VA who are veterans, who have fought and served our country admirably, and these folks are getting just summarily laid off, fired. And then this letter, the fork in the road letter, the fact that Elon Musk has no accountability. I mean, this man wasn't elected by anybody, wasn't appointed by anybody, wasn't confirmed by the Senate, and yet he has immense power. And let's not even talk about the conflict of interest. I mean, it's just a known fact that his wealth is made up of federal contracts, whether that's Tesla and all of the subsidies that we've given for electric vehicles that went to subsidize his business, or SpaceX and the fact that we've commercialized space exploration and he gets money that way. It's just really, really confusing. And what I've said is that I'm going to continue to try to do what I was sent here to do, and that's to try to legislate and try to make sure that I am helping. We can't sue as members of Congress. We can't sue the federal government around policies that we implement and we make. We don't have quote unquote standing. So there are a lot of lawsuits that are going on. And Josh, I want people to understand that those lawsuits are critically important because they're being led by unions fighting on behalf of their employees that are being let go. They're nonprofits that directly benefit from federal aid, whether that's Meals on Wheels or Head Start. I mean, there's so many programs that affect our communities that are funded by the federal government. And, like I said, nobody wants waste, fraud, and abuse, but we want efficiency in our government, but there's a way to do it. And this sort of slash and burn hatchet job that's going on now is not the way to run government.
So, Congresswoman, I heard an interview that Leader Hakeem Jeffries gave to Rachel Maddow earlier this week. And the crux of the interview seemed to be Rachel's attempt to get Leader Jeffries to basically reveal what the plan is. So I didn't get a clear sense, honestly, from his answer beyond just, well, we're going to continue to resist and we're going to rely on the courts. And I heard you just make a reference to the courts. Is that it? Is that the extent of the Democratic plan?
No, I mean, I think that there's been a three-prong approach, but let's start with let's level set. The reality is that the Republicans control every lever of government. They control the House, they control the Senate, and they control the White House. And frankly, they have a majority in the courts as well. But we know that the Constitution has given three co-equal branches of government. And what we're seeing is my Republican colleagues summarily giving up the power of the purse, which is which is given to the Congress to decide how we're going to appropriate money, how we're going to raise money. I mean, the only committee that has the ability to raise money is a committee I sit on, the Ways and Means Committee. And the only way that you can do that is through taxes. And let's be very clear, the agenda of the Republicans has become quite clear. The only way that they can actually give a tax cut, an expanded tax cut for the wealthy, the well-connected, the well-off, is by cutting programs. So the $4.5 trillion worth of cuts that they're doing so that they can give a tax break to the wealthy and to these big corporations. It's not trickling down to the people I represent. Didn't trickle down in 2017, is not trickling down now. And so that is why they're looking to make all these cuts, is so that they can expand their 2017 tax cut for the wealthy and the big corporations. And it's simply unacceptable. So what are the Democrats doing? Well, I think it's a three-prong approach. We are litigating where we can and supporting the litigation that's going on. And frankly, the litigation is working because you see, that they sent out this horrible memo asking for a freeze on everything. And then all of a sudden they had to rescind that because the courts, put a pause on a lot of that freezing. We're not able to directly sue. So we are supporting, meaning that we are doing amicus briefs, being able to make sure that we understand what's going on in the court systems. But many of these folks that have been laid off will have to sue to get their jobs back. And frankly, I believe that they're going to win a lot of those lawsuits. We are legislating because that's what we're supposed to do. When we found out on my committee that taxpayer information was going straight to Elon Musk and his, his cronies, or these young kids that work for him, and that taxpayer information included our Social Security information, our your banking information, if you have direct deposit for your refund checks and stuff. This is personal identifiable information. We filed, a bill called the Taxpayer Protection Act, which we, if we could actually get 3 members of the Republican Party to join us, all we need is 3, we can actually legislate. So we're legislating, we're litigating, and we're mobilizing folks. And that's what I hope that being on your show today is about making sure that we're giving people the facts about how these cuts are directly impacting people and their communities, and hoping that people take charge with that information, that they not just call my office, but how about calling our Republican senators? I mean, they're the ones who have a direct line to the White House. I no longer do. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to fight as hard as I can for the people back home. And my job stays the same, whether it's a Republican member, a Republican president or a Democratic president. My job is to fight for the people back home, to provide them with more resources and better opportunities. And I will continue to do that. It's obviously easier if I have a direct line to the White House. I don't have that, but my colleagues do. And we need to make sure that people are being held accountable here. And I think that that's what you're seeing across the board. And so between mobilizing and litigating and legislating where we can, we're going to have to be very, very focused and intentional in our organization, which is why you see folks like myself not just doing in-person roundtables and town halls, but doing telephone town halls when we're here in Washington. And the fact that you see so many people willing to sign, to actually call in to a telephone town hall and stay on, that just goes to show you that people are really, really, really concerned with what's going on here. And rightfully so. There's no way that they can give a $4 trillion tax break to the wealthy without cutting essential programs. And let me say, one of the ones that has to get cut is a mandatory program, Medicaid. And I'm sorry, in Alabama, we have a bare bones Medicaid program.
Right.
You have to not just be poor, you have to be po. You can't afford the O or the R in Alabama in order to get Medicaid. You know that.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yes,
right.
yes,
That's right.
we do.
And then when you add on top of that,
Yeah.
we are one of the few states, there are only 10 left, that didn't expand Medicaid, so that we don't even have a deep safety net for people who really are vulnerable and need health insurance. We don't have that. But when you think about the fact that in order to get this tax cut that they're looking to provide to the wealthy and to the corporations, in order to do that, they have to cut $800 billion from Medicaid. Now, how is that not going to directly impact the most vulnerable in Alabama? When you think about the fact that 45% of the beneficiaries of Medicaid in Alabama are children, our CHIPS program, our health insurance for children, 45%. And then when you think about the fact that the majority of the births in Alabama are paid for by what? Medicaid. And then, of course, you have nursing home. You have, so there's like millions of Alabamians that depend upon Medicaid as their sole source of health care. And I think that it's important that people understand that when you're having these deep cuts, it's going to affect the delivery of health care. And what that means is that those of us, those who don't have health insurance or who don't have adequate health insurance are the ones that are really going to get left holding the bag. And on my watch, I'm not going to simply sit back and let that happen without sounding the alarm. And I am sounding a huge alarm. I mean, the house is on fire, is what I want people to know. And it's not a slow simmer. It's on fire. And we need to be very cognizant of what's going on. And I think part of that is just part of my job is informing folks of the truth, not what you I know that the truth is is up for question these days because so many people get their news source from, just certain outlets. And so it's an echo chamber. And so now we're even questioning what's real and what's not, which is unfortunate as well. But, I can tell you that, 1 million Alabamians rely on Medicaid, and 66% of the folks that are in that are in nursing homes, Medicaid pays for it. Okay. 20% of those folks who are disabled, all of that is Medicaid, and it's going to dramatically affect what we can and can't do. And then, of course, when you think about Head Start and how important Head Start is when we think about early childhood education and trying to put our money on the front end in educating our children, cuts to that will have a devastating effect on school children. And I mean, I just think that we're going backwards and not forwards, and people
Yes.
need to know that.
So, as a follow-up to my question, and I appreciate the three-pronged approach that you shared with us: legislating, litigating, and mobilizing. I think all of that is great and and should be effective under normal circumstances. My concern, and I think the concern other people have too, is that we are in an abnormal circumstance with a leader, a president who is brazenly inclined to be not only fascist but authoritarian and dictatorial. So looking at that and looking at the possibility that at some point it is highly likely that the president is going to give the middle finger to the courts and to law and order and just say, I'm running things, I'm the king, which he's already suggested to us, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but I think with a lot of, truth, with that Time magazine, or not Time magazine, but that meme that they created. What do we do then? What do we do then? Because the three-pronged approach, it's not going to work with an authoritarian, is it?
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that we do have a constitution. We are a nation of laws. Now, he can point his finger up and say, screw it. But the reality is that we have a constitution that our court systems should be trying to protect. We have a division of government where those of us who are in Congress should be trying to keep the power that we have of checks and balances. And so, quiet as it's kept, laws very rarely come from the halls of Congress. Laws bubble up from grassroots activism. The public has to make us do our job. If you haven't realized that, I'm here to tell you. It's a sad fact and reality that we wouldn't have the Voting Rights Act of 1965 had John Lewis and those folks hadn't been bludgeoned on a bridge in Selma and the world watched it in horror. And so the reality is that public sentiment is important. And that is why going on shows like this, telling folks the reality of what these cuts mean matters. And their voice matters. And so, I mean, we saw within, 24 hours after we found out that the Air Force had eliminated the whole teaching materials around the Tuskegee Airmen, and you saw public sentiment swell and people were outraged by it. And all of a sudden, we didn't really mean to do that. Or just yesterday, when Elon Musk issued this overnight thing on Sunday night, asking folks to give 5 things that they've done to keep their jobs, all of a sudden he had to rescind that because even Republicans who were in charge of agencies understood that they were giving up major power, their own power of that agency, giving that control over to someone who's not elected, not appointed. I mean, I don't know what he is other than a friend of the president. But I mean, I just think that, we have to. I choose to be hopeful here. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we can be angry about the situation, but the American public voted this man in, and the state of Alabama overwhelmingly voted for him. And so, we're playing with the hand that we're being dealt here. But I think an insistence upon rule of law is and following the Constitution is not, you know, that's not just a maybe. That is an imperative. And so, you know, I do understand that it's going to take some time to work its way through the court system. What I don't understand is how my colleagues are willy-nilly just giving up their own power and subjugating their own power to the president. You know, I don't get that, because the law, the division of labor, the ability, you know, the checks and balances that are part and parcel of our democracy, and that's what we have as a democracy, not an autocracy, not a dictatorship. He is not king. He may profess himself to be all, but he is not king. We don't have that system of government, and we have to make that system of government work for the people.
Yeah, that plays into exactly what the last question I had for you before we let you go and get back out to the good fight. Um, yeah, have you spoken to I mean, because you know, talking to people around here, there are a lot of people who are legitimately afraid of what's taking place, what they see, and I got to tell you, it's not just Democrats. It's not just a bunch of scared snowflake liberals, as they talk about. There are a lot of people that have been working in these federal jobs for a long, long time, and now all of a sudden they found themselves out on the street, and they're scared about what's taking place and what they see and the way this has all gone down. And have you spoken to any of your Republican colleagues from this state, you know, and asked them about what they're going to do, or if they're like Robert Adderholt or Dale Strong, especially Dale Strong, who seems to think Huntsville is just going to take the cuts and keep on motoring, or I mean,
I think
or
you
you know,
know that the private sector is going to absorb all of these folks who are unemployed.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, just any day
Yeah,
now. They're all gonna
yeah,
go work in chicken
yeah.
plants apparently. And it's just, you know, or Katie Britt, who has a direct line to the president over there. I mean, or Tommy Tuberville. I mean, you would have to explain what the three branches of governments are, but you know, that's you know, I just wonder if any of them, or if you've gotten any sense from any of them that they are concerned as well, if not for the actions being taken, at least the reflection of those actions on them and the party.
Well, you know, I have not spoken to them directly about it. You know, I do know that, you know, that Katie was concerned about the Air Force manual and said so, and was very instrumental, I think, in getting that turned around. I know that that my colleagues are as concerned as I am about the NIH cuts and how that will impact UAB. And you know, UAB is the second largest employer for the state of Alabama, and cutting research and scientific research and all those dollars, that's jobs lost, that's money coming out of Alabama. And so I think it's going to be really hard for them to not acknowledge that these cuts have come home to roost, and that they are going to dramatically affect the state of Alabama. I mean, when you think about $300 billion worth of grants that we received from NIH in 1 year, and the 5,000 jobs that are reflected by it, to lose that matters. And you know, um, Josh, I think that we all know that this president had a mandate, in the sense that he talked about lowering costs and bringing down inflation. I don't know how you do that when you're going to have longer unemployment lines and the cost of eggs are still high. And I mean, I think that, you know, I think we have to really hold this administration accountable for where they are, and the way that they're doing it. I think that you know, Clinton did some huge cuts his first term in office, but he studied it for 6 months. He made, you know, each agency justify what the programs were, and to provide information about how effective those programs were. And then he made targeted, focused, based on evidence and based on, you know, hard facts, made decisions that way. You don't make decisions by turning the spigot up and waiting to see what happens. I mean, what sense does that make? And I think that if we saw more deliberation, if we saw more thoughtfulness about it, I think a lot of folks would feel better about the results. Now, they may not be happy about it because behind every cut is a job. And I have to tell you, as a government employee myself, because I get funded by the taxpayer, I resent the implication that somehow the narrative that this administration is putting out there is that government employees are lazy, they don't want to work, they're not effective. I resent that. The folks that I hire here, they're doing the job on behalf of Alabama 7th Congressional. We work hard every day. There is no such thing as a 9 to 5. When people are hurting and they need help, we have to be there to answer those calls and to be able to provide assistance. And we couldn't just go and hide when COVID hit. It was more important than ever that we get trusted, trusted influencers, health influencers, to try to figure out ways that we can help the folks back home get the help that they need in order to get past COVID. I also think that what COVID also taught us is that there's nothing that we can't do when we put our mind to it. I mean, let's think about this. We actually found not one, but 3 vaccines in 9 months for a global pandemic when we had the best and the brightest and we put our mind to it and we focused. There's nothing we as Americans can't do if we don't focus. If we focus our attention and our mind to it. And what I'm afraid of is that we're going down the wrong path. And in doing so, we are alienating our allies. I sit on Ways and Means. We just had a hearing on tariffs and trade. And, the fact that the folks that we're alienating our North American allies, Mexico and Canada. I mean, we have, when you think about how much trade we do with North America, I can tell you that I've gotten a lot of conversations and a lot of calls from my Canadian friends who don't take lightly to being called the 51st state. It's I want this president to succeed because he is the president of the United States, but he is going down a path that is dangerous. When you start calling the Ukraine president a dictator and not the real dictator, Putin, that is a problem. I mean, I know we're talking about the tax cuts, and I am going to have to go to the floor sometime to vote on budget. But I mean, there is a real fear in the voices of the constituents that I represent when I talk to them on the phone, when I talk to them in person, and that fear is justified. I mean, the threat is from within, and I really hope people will wake up and smell the coffee. And I know that there's some buyer's remorse going on, but I also know that that we can't just bury our head in the sand. We have to fight back. We have to mobilize and organize against the injustice that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you're right. I think so. Getting out and speaking out about it, and giving people the actual facts, and aligning those facts with what they actually see on the ground every day. I mean, when you watch the president align the country with Russia in the war of Ukraine and turn our backs on our European allies, while at the same time, all of those things that he promised during the campaign about cutting inflation on day one, lowering the prices of eggs, cutting those taxes on tips, and all those things, none of that stuff managed to make it into the budget, strangely enough.
No.
And
And
so,
frankly, I haven't seen our crisis at the border gotten any better. Have you? I don't think so.
yeah, yeah.
I
And
mean,
and people have just suddenly stopped eating dogs. I know that. That's
yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I choose to be hopeful because I believe that hope is a choice. And I also believe that we are a resilient people and we've been down this road before. The difference is that I've not seen this president so as brazen. He feels as if the fact that he won such a big majority and he won, every battleground state and he won the popular vote and, he feels emboldened in a way. And I have to tell you what is particularly concerning to me is this attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and having that bleed over into the celebration of Black History Month somehow being a DEI initiative. I'm sorry, the celebration of the significant contributions of African Americans to this country is America's history. It's not Black history, it's Americans' history. And I mean, on so many different fronts, I feel as if there's an effort to try to erase our history. And I think that, coupled with the fact that these cuts are real and that they have real impact on real people back home, and it just makes our predicament even more stressful and distressing. And so I I you know I'm trying to take a page from John Lewis's book. John said that ours is not a fight for one day, 1 month, 1 year, but it's really a fight of a lifetime. That progress is elusive, and every generation has to fight to hold on to the progress that we've made, or we will revert and lose it. And I feel like we're slipping backwards, not forwards. And this is our collective watch. We're grown adults here. This is our watch, our turn our time to lead, and it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. And so, it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to do something about it. And I think it's a combination of making sure people understand what's at stake and hoping that that the power of the people, the will of the people, will reign. And and that's what I hope the information and giving people the information will do. I also think that, we're on the cusp of the 60th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery March, and I've been doing a lot of interviews around that. And I keep reminding myself that, they didn't just happen upon Selma. They just didn't happen upon Birmingham and Bull Connor. That these were strategists and tacticians, and maybe we can take a page from that book. And so I'm being very introspective at a time when I think that it's really important for us to figure out how we can get ourselves in this country back on track.
No, I agree with everything you said, and I think you're absolutely right. It is a scary time for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are taking stock in what's kind of going on right now. And I know this. I know that we're better off for you being there, and doing it, and sounding the alarm like you have, and continuing to give people facts. And I think the more that we can do that, and the more they start to see it for themselves, I think that groundswell will be there, and we'll start to make a turn. The pendulum will finally swing the other way.
I saw some of my Republican colleagues in Georgia got an earful from their town hall meeting.
Yeah, they did. That's right.
Never underestimate the power of public sentiment. And I think that, I have always been a kind of person who, working across the aisle when and where I can, but I'm not going to sit back and let the folks that I represent literally be sold out for a tax cut for the wealthy and corporations. Amazon does not need another tax cut.
Right.
And I'm sorry, they just don't. And frankly, when you move the corporate rate from 37%, which was too high, to 20%, really?
Yeah.
Where do you have to go?
Right.
And so I just think that folks need to understand what's at stake here. And I'm going to continue to sound the alarm, but I'm not just going to sound the alarm. I'm also going to give folks an alternative. And I think that we have got to continue to call me, but please call our senators. Please call the other members of our delegation. I mean, I'm one vote, and my vote's going to be hell no on all these.
Well,
did I say no? It's going to be hell no.
Right. That's good.
Right.
That's
But
good.
I'm one vote. And the reality is that the House is very close. I mean, all we need is 3 Republicans to side with the Democrats, and this budget resolution fails. So it's going to be very interesting, I think, the next couple of weeks, because I don't know, the Freedom Caucus has made it their cause célèbre to always vote against budgets. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to thread this needle. David, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to thread this needle.
Amen.
I'm going to have
Amen.
popcorn sitting back in the cloakroom trying to figure out whether or not they're going to be able to make this cut a reality.
Yes.
All we need is 3 people, 3 Republicans to decide with us. And, the Freedom Caucus is what, 20 plus strong. And they don't believe in raising the debt ceiling. They don't believe in funding government. They don't believe in government. It's really interesting to actually work on behalf of the people.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't actually believe in government and the ability of government to help.
Oxymoronic at best,
Yeah,
right?
they keep cashing the checks though. That's the weird thing about it. They keep cashing the checks. I don't. Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
That's
so,
right.
what they say that evil is allowed to flourish when people of goodwill do nothing. And we have to not do nothing. We have to continue to push the envelope, to fight, to push back. I think that folks I think that the midterm election will be very important. I think that I think that people see that it's important not to have every lever of government in one party, that having a check and a balance is necessary to our democracy. And I hope that means that the House will flip to the Democrats come 2 years from now. But I think that we have a lot of time between now and then, and it's simply not enough to sit back and do nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, listen, we appreciate you and what you are doing, and also for spending some time with us.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure. And hopefully you're right, and hopefully in the very near future we'll be talking to you as you're, in some lofty position in the majority party, and things are going the right way again. But thank you, Congresswoman, for
Absolutely.
spending some time with us.
Well, thank you for all
Thank
that you
you.
all do, and just making sure that the folks in Alabama know what's going on. So I really do appreciate your podcast and y'all's perseverance in making sure that facts get out there. So I really do appreciate that.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am. Thank you so
Thanks.
much. That is
All right.
Congresswoman Terri Sewell. She's our hope. She's one of our hopes out there. So she does a great job, and we really appreciate the time. All right, let's slide out. We'll come back. We'll wrap this thing up in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a moment. Alrighty. Welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to be joined by Alabama's other congressperson. The new guy. We had Congresswoman Terri Sewell on earlier with us, and so now we've got you, and so we're getting the coverage. What we tried to do is we said, hey, can we get sane people on to talk about the chaos? And so we found the 2 most sane people that we could possibly find. How's it going up there, man?
Look, it's going well, man. We are blessed every single day to be in this position, to be here representing the people of the state of Alabama and of District 2. So look, we, despite the chaos, we are happy to be here and happy to be the voice for people in District 2.
Talking to Congresswoman Sewell, she said she'd been there for a while, and so she knows the norms. She knows how things are supposed to work and how things usually flow, and she called it just straight up chaos, and that she just couldn't wrap her mind around. Said she couldn't wrap her mind around some of the stuff that's happening right there so fast. I know this is your first time. And so you're going to be, like they say, drinking from the fire hose anyways. But has it been overwhelming? Have you heard from other people about how, hey man, it's not always like this? Or is it, can you handle it?
Well, I mean, look, I had the privilege of working in Congress before. It seems like in a previous life, but certainly within last time Donald Trump was president, I was working as a staffer in Congress, and so this is not that unusual for me. But I think that there are seemingly a lot of norms that are being departed from. We're seeing a lot of interesting things both from the White House side as well as here in Congress. And so we have an obligation to try to steady the ship as much as we can and to try to push forward those pieces of legislation that are actually going to have tangible benefits for the people of District 2 and the people of Alabama and just average everyday Americans. And that, unfortunately, has not been the priority of the Republican leadership that we have in place right now.
Yeah. It seems like, just judging by the stories, judging by what we've seen at town halls, judging by, what Congresswoman Sewell said yesterday, things are starting to take a turn for the Republicans when it comes to public perception of what's taking place with the Doge cuts, Elon Musk's role in all this stuff, some of the other things that have happened. Are you hearing from people in District 2? Are your phones ringing off the hook? And what are you telling people who are calling, who are rightfully scared of the things that's happening and the things that are taking place?
Yeah, look, I think people are tired of seeing, a chainsaw being used when a scalpel may be more appropriate. I think people are tired of just general indecency and not showing a level of compassion for people. Like when you see things like these job cuts, even if you believe someone's job to be phased out, that it's not necessary, there's a decent and humane way to do that. Right? There's a way where you give people a lead up. You say, hey, 6 months from now, your job won't be here. 9 months from now, a year, right? We're phasing your job out. You give them that heads up. The only departure from that should be if you're in a situation where you are literally out of money, which that is obviously not the case. And so to see people who have devoted themselves, their lives to public service, get an email on a Saturday night, having been somewhere for 5, 10, 15 years, and someone say, yep, you don't have a job on Monday morning, it's not right. And I think people are seeing that level of just callousness and just cold-heartedness that this administration is showing towards everyday people. Even people, you see the stories online now, people who even voted for him are losing jobs, or people who voted for him and supported him are losing access to whether it's federal contracts or services in there. And I think people are tired of that. I think they're tired of this sort of Hollywood type of presidency, just doing all of these reckless things and taking these reckless tasks on that are really not helping the everyday person. And it's all summed up like it's all an illusion, right? You put this government efficiency office together, and you allow it to be named after a cryptocurrency owned by the person that you actually put in here to head it up, which is crazy. If President Obama or President Biden did anything remotely close to that, their heads would explode. They'd be calling for them to be arrested. They'd be calling for investigations. But you see that, and they say, "Oh, we're saving people money." But then last night we voted on a budget framework that's literally going to add $2 trillion to the deficit, at least $2 trillion. And so you see that it's an illusion. It's a gimmick. It's pulling the curtains over people's eyes, and it's not right. And I think people see that, they see through that, and that's what we're prioritizing in terms of how we're messaging this to American people, that they aren't cutting spending. They're just targeting spending towards the things that they want. All right. Elon Musk has received over $18 billion in federal contracts over the last several years. $18 billion. I think north of $400 million just since President Trump has been in office. Now, these are contracts that he likely would have been awarded regardless of who was president. But the fact that you have that person who's receiving that amount of money, has that much of a stake in the federal government, reviewing the spending policies of the federal government, including those policies that would impact possibly his competitors, that is problematic. That is problematic, and it is a conflict of interest that even my child could spot. So I think people are tired of that, and I think that's the uproar that you're seeing across the country.
So, Congressman, yesterday, Congresswoman Sewell told us that the Democratic strategy, as she sees it, is to legislate, litigate, mobilize, and also she added a little bit later on, she added one other thing, and that was the need for people at the grassroots to continue to challenge and speak out. Is that your assessment also, that that's what it's going to take for Democrats not only to be successful in countering some of what this administration is doing, but also in better positioning for a victory in 2026?
But I think each one of those elements are certainly core parts of the strategy that we have to implement, going forward. I would add to that, educate, exposing exposing them for who they truly are and who they truly care about and who they truly want to prioritize. At the end of the day, we're talking about an administration who has laid bare what their priorities are. I learned a long time ago. You show me where you spend your time and your money, and I will show you what your priorities are. And they just laid forth a budget that when you really dive into it, see that what their priorities are, and more importantly, what their priorities are not, and who their priorities are not. And when we look at that budget, what we see is literally we're going to run up a $2 trillion deficit under this budget framework. And we're not doing that in an effort to keep hospitals open in the state of Alabama. We're not doing that in an effort to expand healthcare access in the state of Alabama. We're not doing that in an effort to prevent Tuskegee from having to offer its entry-level police officers $15 an hour to run into, situations of danger and being shot at. We're not doing that to expand infrastructure investments and create jobs in the state of Alabama. We're not doing that to create salary levels for service members so that they don't still qualify for SNAP benefits, even though they've signed up to die for this country. We're not doing that for those people. We're not doing that to invest in teachers and social workers and law enforcement, first responders. We're not doing that for the people who need it most. We're not doing that to lower the cost of living for mechanics and for lawn care workers and for barbers, right? That's not what the priority is for this administration. And that is, that is unfortunate. Their priority under this budget will literally set the stage for tax breaks for people to take home hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax breaks if you make north of $3 million. But if you make under $100,000, which is 99% of America, take home what, a few $100s a year? Not right. It's not fair. And so we have that responsibility to educate voters and educate Americans in general on what that is. But we also have an obligation. We have an obligation to make sure that we're not just complaining. We're not just pointing out what's wrong. We're actually pointing to tangible solutions that we want to bring to the table to help better the circumstances and conditions for people, not just in District 2, but across this country.
This morning, I was reflecting a little bit, Congressman, and I thought about your dad and your mom and how it appears to me, at least, as though you are sort of the culmination of their lives, their efforts, for you to be not just a legislator, but for this state level, something that I imagine your dad would be particularly proud of if he were alive to see. When you sit in your seat and when you do the work you do you feel some sense of that sort of culmination of your parents' legacy? And does it ever play out in your mind that you're kind of living the next level of all of the efforts that they made in their lives?
Oh God, every single day that I wake up in life in general, regardless of being in Congress, certainly being in Congress, it's certainly amplified. You wake up with an enormous sense of gratitude and of thanks and appreciation for the road that was paved for me to be here today. And that's not only just my parents, but all of those people who, fought those battles, both known and unknown, for me to be able, people like me to be able to have the opportunity to serve an elected office, period, or have the right to vote here. And so, as it relates to my parents, they certainly set a framework, for me and for my life that I'm eternally grateful for. And something that, from it, I was able to take the lessons that they taught, looking at the example that they set in terms of taking what God has given you. How do you take that and put it to use for the benefit and betterment of the people and places that mean the most to you? And for me, that's always been home. That's always been the state of Alabama. Like, if I didn't grow up in Alabama, I don't know that I would have had the desire to want to pursue a career in government, let alone running for Congress. And so, just given the role that the federal government has had to play, historically in making the state of Alabama do right by people. And so, my parents, they really took heed to that, and they really lived their lives in service of people and communities to make sure that we don't forget where we come from. You don't forget the people that need government to work for them in a fair way, in a balanced way, and in a way that levels the playing field for them to be able to pursue the types of lives that they would like to pursue. And so I am, incredibly thankful for that. Obviously, my father not being here, would love to be able to have those conversations, but we certainly try, to execute as best we can on that legacy that he left, and certainly try to make mama proud every single day.
Two things. First, I don't know if you've started writing a floor speech of any kind about any of this stuff, but the things you rattled off a few minutes ago about who this who this is not for, and what this is not for, it should be one. I've not heard it put. I've listened to a lot of things. Listen, I'm serious. I've listened to a lot of stuff from a lot of people around there, and a lot of people talk. That's the most eloquent and to the point comments I've heard. Seriously, in all seriousness, not blowing smoke or anything else. It should be. If you're not going to do it, give it to somebody who will. Because I mean, my God, I mean, it was really good.
Well, look, we actually were going to do it today. Actually, part of
Okay.
the reason we had some scheduling difficulties, we were supposed to be giving a scheduling speech, but then I had a markup at committee that ran a little long, so we missed the window for it. So if we don't get to do it this week, we'll certainly be doing it next week. Unfortunately, this is going to be a relevant topic going on for some time because we got this budget framework, and then we got to go through the shutdown piece, which I think we're headed directly into a shutdown, and then we have to go through the reconciliation piece. So they will continue to make clear who their priorities are, and at the end of the day, it's not the average everyday person. It simply is not, and their budget is clearly demonstrative of that.
Yeah, it was really, really, really good. And
Yeah.
the other thing,
Yeah.
you worked for a long piece at the Department of Justice, and I think overshadowed a little bit in some of these things that are going on. Is because you have all these cuts, and rightfully these when you're affecting people's lives, like we talked about, those things get the attention and all that. And I get to all that. But there have been a lot of things that have been done in the area of rolling back civil rights protections, rolling back things. I mean, just the other day we had a 19 million, just an arbitrary $19 million cut to HBCUs. Just cause the hell with them. I guess. When you see that, is it? I mean, is it infuriating? I mean, is it something that you've got to kind of keep yourself in check a little bit?
Look, it's certainly incredibly, incredibly aggravating, and it certainly makes you upset, and it certainly makes you, regret that we have to again have fights on battles that we thought were won decades ago, and that we presume we'd never have to fight some of them again. And we will always stand up for that every single day. I mean, I'm only here because of battles that were fought by people across this country for me. And they didn't know me; they didn't know I'd be here. And, it resonates particularly strong with me, given the fact that I have the birthplace of the civil rights movement in this district in Montgomery, a place where they literally stood up to Jim Crow. They stood up to segregation. They stood up to racism in a way where other cities and towns did not stand up collectively, at least not at that time. Right. They literally laid it all on the line just so Black people could be treated with the same level of dignity and respect and have access to the same type of rights and schools and education and employment opportunities as anybody else. And they did that. They put it on the line for America to be, as Dr. King would say, be true to what it said on paper for everybody. And so, when you come from this district, when you come from this state, when you come from this place, when you come from a family legacy of a father who integrated University of Alabama's law school, became the first Black person educated in a law school in the state of Alabama, of course, it certainly hits you a little bit different. It certainly makes you want to fight that much harder. What we saw with the land grant HBCUs was crazy. The craziest part of it is actually the part that didn't really make the news, and that's that the 1890 land grant schools, those were all HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, right, to provide those education opportunities for Blacks who have previously either been slaves, enslaved, or coming off of a sharecropper sort of economy. They didn't pause any of the funding to the 1862 land grant colleges. Those were all non-HBCU schools. Those were the Auburn universities, your Texas A&M universities, your LSUs of the world, which is just, it just goes to show that even when, people want to say that, it's not about race and it's all about, merit, when you make decisions that literally only impact people of a certain race, or schools that are, historically Black colleges and don't, take those same steps for others, it's hard to say that it's not about race. And so, we have an obligation to make sure that we're standing up for civil rights, that we're standing up for keeping a playing field level. I mean, these were battles that we fought long ago. Like, never would I have thought that, we'd have a president that would come in and rescind an EEOC anti-discrimination ban against federal contracting that had been in place since President Johnson.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
That's been through Reagan. That's been through 2 Bushes. That's been
right,
through Trump the first time. Right. Like
right,
it's, the just trust us, we'll get it right philosophy has not historically served minority communities in this country. And so that's the reason that those laws are in place to make sure that we don't wind up in a predicament of just trust us, because just trust us will lead us to places where 1890 land grant colleges get funding streams paused, and 1862 land grant colleges don't get funding stream paused. Just trust us will lead us in
right.
situations where Tuskegee Airmen, who are literally the most well-known fighting unit in the world history, get taken out of training curriculum for the Air Force, right? And we were fortunate to have Senator Britt standing up with us on that issue, and they course corrected. On this land grant college, myself and Terri Sewell and others, we stood up and they course corrected on that as well. But this song and dance is becoming too routine, and unfortunately, we're continuing to have to do it. And I don't think that's going to be the last time that we have to do it.
Yeah. So where did all the accidents happen in one way and not the other way?
Yeah.
There's never any accidents where the HBCUs got too much money. Oh, look, I'm sorry, it was our fault. My bad.
No.
It was listen, well, I know you're pressed. We'll get you out of here on this. I just wanted to ask real quick. As you've been there now. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, just real quickly. In light of what we were just discussing, we also know that the Justice Department under the Biden administration had discovered, or alleged at least, that about $500 million, if I'm not mistaken, is owed to Alabama A&M, and I think they also singled out some other schools around, historically black schools around the country. Do you have any sense of how that's going to be affected by this current Justice Department?
So I don't recall 100%. So don't quote me, but I don't know that letter came from DOJ. I believe it came from Department of Education, which if it ultimately was litigated, Department of Justice would certainly have to be involved with it. But basically, the core, regardless of what agency the letter came from, the core of it was that they accused the state of Alabama of not appropriating public funds to HBCUs the same way it appropriated funds for certain white institutions, to the tune aggregated over the past, I think, 30 years is how far they went back. Or it's to close like $500 million. I believe the schools that were impacted were Alabama A&M, Alabama State. I don't recall if Tuskegee was impacted in that. But nevertheless, it was an inquiry initially sent to the state of Alabama to sort of check. It's to basically go back and check. It was a request. It wasn't a lawsuit or anything. It wasn't, some federal action. It was just saying, hey, we think you underfunded these institutions. Let's go back and look at it. And I believe the state of Alabama, that came out toward the tail end of the administration. I think they got those letters maybe in, the late spring or so, and they were looking at it. I don't know what has come of it. I know that there are people certainly in the state that are definitely interested in that issue, and some state legislators, particularly those like Representative Anthony Daniels, who went to an HBCU, who are definitely vested in figuring out, did the state make a mistake? And if so, how can we attempt to rectify it? Obviously, you can't go back and take money away from schools, to fix an issue that was in the making over 30 years. But we can certainly take some steps going forward to try to rectify it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just just to get you out, I was just going to ask how things, other than the fire that's happening all around you, how have things been the first few weeks? Is it what you thought it would be? Is it, I mean, I know you, like you said before, you've worked in Congress, and so it wasn't exactly a foreign thing to you, but at the same time, being in the seat and doing the job has got to have been a bit of a whirlwind, right?
Look, it's been great, man. I think despite everything that we see in here, at the end of the day, each morning that I get to walk in here, I'm walking in here as a member of Congress who has a seat at the table to be able to try to influence decisions and outcomes that are going to benefit the people of the United States of America and people in the communities that I grew up in and that raised me up to, for me to be who I am today. And so that is something that I can never complain about having that opportunity. So we're fortunate every single day and grateful for that chance every single day. Fortunate enough to get to work with a phenomenal team here in DC that, they're really experts in what they do and helping us represent the people of the state of Alabama. I have an excellent team in the state, and our district's office is very experienced in being able to handle casework and help constituents navigate the federal government in whatever, shape, form, or fashion they need help in. And so I cannot complain about that, man. We've gotten settled in here. We have great people supporting us, and we get to go to work every single day to try to make life better for people. And so excited about that and going to continue doing that every single day, man.
All right. Well, listen, we're thrilled that you're there. To have you and
Yep.
Terri Sewell there looking out for people and trying to make things better and setting an example of how things could be done for the folks around this state. It's wonderful. It really is, and we appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the work, and really appreciate you spending some time today. I know it was a busy day and sliding us in, man. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Congressman Shamari Figures. It's
Thank you,
so
Josh.
nice to
It's
say.
been good to see you guys again, man. Thank you
All
guys so
right.
much.
All
All
right.
righty, thanks, sir. That is the congressman. He is he'll do great, and we're lucky to have him. So, all right, let's slide out of here. We'll come back in just a few minutes. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a moment. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Thanks to our folks at Wind
Yeah.
Creek and the folks at PCI, and they do great. Also, thanks to our friends over at Southern Poverty Law Center. We're going to
Yep.
have some folks from there on next week talk about the events over in Selma for the 60th anniversary of the bridge crossing and everything that's going on with that. That's big events over there, and hopefully we're still allowed to do that. I don't know if we're still allowed or not, given the current climate of things, and or maybe that's DEI. I don't know. And if you're wondering, yes, I am. I do wear the same clothes on multiple days. I just I thought this is what we were doing, and then David sold me out.
I started to wear the same shirt. I did. I thought about it, and I was like, it probably didn't matter.
The hell with Josh. Screw him. So yes, it was great when we logged on and saw David in different clothing. It was nice. But no, listen, because we recorded. Sometimes you got to do that, when
Yep.
the folks say they have availability. It just so happened it worked out where David and I both had some time on a Tuesday afternoon, and to be able to get Terri Sewell in. We were very fortunate to do that, and to catch her when it was late in the afternoon. I think she just had enough of the BS on that day, my man.
Yeah.
Oh man, she was fired up. So, but it was good, and we really appreciate them coming on and spending time with us, and I hope it adds to things. All right, we're going to get out of here quickly. We're just going to do a right wing nut, and the right wing nut is the Shelby County School Board that fired a poor Yvette Dunn, the lunchroom lady who was collecting money or collected really one donation of money for children. If so. How it works in school now, if you don't have kids, which we do, and our daughter has discovered how to use her lunchroom account, and she really likes doing that. She's bought all sorts of stuff in the lunchroom, but we finally had to reel that back in a little bit. But I think she was buying for other people. She was just in there, hey, would you like a cupcake? Would you like a cup? Throwing them out like Oprah on a show. It's look under your seats. It's a snack pack for you. You get a snack pack. You get a pudding. You get a pudding. Anyway, so you have an account that parents put money into, a lunchroom account that parents put money into. The kids just go through the line. They give them their number at the register. They type the number in. It takes the money out of that. And so sometimes though, kids run out, and most schools have a policy where they do not deny a kid lunch. You've read some stories from time to time about schools that have denied kids lunches because they're run by Nazi assholes, and and really, if you have ever denied a child something to eat in a lunchroom because there's not money in that account, you deserve to be taken out back and beaten with a snow shovel.
Mm,
And
mm.
and I don't care what your excuse is. I don't care what their excuse is. At all. I don't care who their parent. I don't care if their parents are deadbeats. If their parents have plenty of money. If you let a kid be hungry for a full day of school because of that, then you're an asshole. And that's just
Yeah.
that's all. That's the
Yeah,
definition.
it's something. Yeah, I mean, I feel you, man, because it's something that can be corrected later. I mean,
Yes. Or not.
yeah, it's
Or
not,
not.
it's
You're
not
talking about $3 or something for the damn
right,
lunchroom meal. You're
and
eating
it's not, and
cardboard
it's not the
pizza and
child,
yeah.
right, and it's not the child's fault. So,
No. No, it's not. The kid, or I guess we could be like the congressman from Georgia who wanted hungry kids to go out and get jobs so they could pay for their lunchroom meals. Which he's now backtracking on that quickly. But you know, so anyways, they have this account at this Shelby County Elementary School where if the kids run out of money, they add some extra from through the PTO to cover the underages, I guess. And
mhm.
this lady, the lunchroom lady, the account, she had been told the account should not slip under $200 for whatever reason. I don't know why, and she said she didn't know why, and her husband said he didn't know why. But so it was getting down low, and she asked somebody about getting donations from a company that the lady had or the person had mentioned at some time in the past. And so that person said, well, you know what? I don't know about them, but I'll donate it. Here, just don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody that I did it. And so she did it. She put it into the account. The account was back, with enough money in it and was moving forward. And then somebody found out about it and they asked her and she said, well, the woman said, not to tell anybody that she did it. And so she was like, yeah, no, I didn't do anything. I don't know about this. And
Yeah.
she didn't steal any money.
Right.
Nothing was done improperly. It wasn't given to her kids and not anybody else's kids. It wasn't, nothing. They fired this lady. They fired Yvette Dunn. They fired her. They went through hearings and the whole thing, and they fired this lady for this. It's mind-boggling.
Yep.
What are we talking about?
It's extreme, very extreme.
I
Extreme.
don't understand, man.
Yeah.
And I said I made a Facebook post about this and just said, if you're looking for bureaucratic nonsense, and you're wanting to flush out bureaucratic nonsense, this is it. Okay, it's not
Yeah.
the poor federal workers who are going to work every day and doing their job and stuff. It's this kind of BS. These rulers of tiny kingdoms that are in
Mm.
here, just making sure that as somebody's ego got bruised or somebody's feelings got hurt or that kind of thing. And this at best this should have been a vet when we need to have a conversation and look, you can't do it this way. This is not the proper way to do it. We can't have you out soliciting money. Do not do this anymore. And because you lied about it, I'm going to have to suspend you for a week or so. And that be the end of it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, and I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you that this was way off base, but I just don't think she should have been. I mean, to me, a reprimand is all she needed. No
Yeah.
time off work, just a reprimand. Why? Because she was trying to do a good thing. In
Yeah.
fact, I would argue she did a good thing.
Oh, she
And
did.
there was no
yes.
evidence that she didn't, that she
Yeah.
tried to take advantage of it or benefit personally. As far as I know, there was no evidence of that. So, all we're talking about here is a woman trying to do a good thing. Maybe she went about it in a way that wasn't entirely advisable because you want to have checks and balances and controls, but the end result benefited children, not the
Mhm.
woman, but
Yeah.
children. Come on.
Yeah, also, it seemed as though she pretty much adhered to all the checks and
Mhm.
balances of everything. I mean, she didn't, it went into the account, it went into the appropriate account where it was supposed to go. It was it was an account controlled by the PTO. She put the money
Uh-huh.
in there. She didn't do anything different with it than what would have ordinarily been done. I just don't understand why anybody had a problem with any of this,
Well,
and
so she wasn't supposed to solicit, right?
well, no, that came later. I mean, no, there's no policy for that. There's
Oh,
no,
okay.
yeah,
Well,
there's no policy for that. There
okay.
was no policy. There was no written policy, according to the AEA attorneys, and there was no pushback from the board on this, that
Okay.
said, hey, there was no policy about how to do any of this, and it was just and listen, I know I have a little bit of insight in this because my wife is the treasurer for our daughter's elementary school's PTO, and
Mhm.
uh, you know, it's just the insanity of some of the things that she has to do and things that she's done is off the charts. It's like having this. My daughter literally at one point thought she worked for the PTO, but um, yeah, so they're they have some of these accounts out there and stuff, and they're while they're not uh, run recklessly or anything like that, it's
Mhm.
not some super regulated. I mean, you're talking about a group of moms, that are running these things, and they do the best that they can. They keep the money. They try to do the right things with every step of the way. But at the same time, it's, hey, if you want to do this, deposit the money in. We'll make sure it gets to the right place. That sort of deal. And that's what happened. And I just there was no policy with the school because the PTO stuff is separate from the school. Okay, that's how it's normally run. Is that the school doesn't want any part of it? They'll tell you. The principal's like, no, 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 I don't touch that. If we can have some money from you, that's great. If not, then okay. But we're not getting involved in all this. And so that's how
Mhm.
typically they keep that stuff separate. And so that's what was done here as well. And I just I don't understand it all. From what I read from her husband on this, it seemed as though when the confrontation happened about whether or not she had been the one that made the donations and all this, there were other people present and some people I don't know, got their feelings hurt about, her doing it, and I don't know if she showed them up in some
Mm.
way but it was just that sort of pettiness. And this lady had been working there for 8 years. And, and during the hearings, the AEA attorneys that she had brought up repeatedly, look at her reviews. They were,
Yeah.
all of them were great reviews. No one ever had a problem with her. They all loved her at the school. And you fired this lady who put in 8 years over this dumb shit. What are you doing, you
Mhm.
know? I just that I mean, those sorts of things there, that's where we have problems. That's why people have problems with government, okay?
Yeah.
It's not the poor workers that are going in over at the Redstone Arsenal and doing their job or working from home, and doing their
Mhm.
jobs and everybody's happy with their performance and happy with the jobs that are being done. That's not bureaucracy, okay? That's not. That people doing a job that's necessary that we've determined helps our country and helps other people, the Defense Department and all these other departments. Those are things that we need. This is the bureaucracy, okay?
Mhm.
This is the bullshit. All right. And so I just, I hope people have gotten a lesson in that and that we can somehow or another move forward and be a little bit better when all of
Yeah.
this is over with, mercifully.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. We've given y'all way more than you deserve. Um, Send you checks, for whenever you'd like, to us. Oh, yeah, or donate them to the PTO. Whatever you'd like to do.
Pretty big
Ah,
deal though. Two of our congressional delegation on the same show. I like that.
yeah, that's a good show, man. That's a good show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And listen, you're not gonna get it anywhere else. Where else you gonna get it?
Nope.
You're not
Nope.
getting that anywhere else, buddy. And I think that both of them have very unique perspectives on things. They were, look, if you're a Republican listening to this, you wish that they were on your side. You know, you wish that they were on your side instead of the guy who's proud of trying to tear up the Constitution and the other ones that have sat by and watched your federal workers be fired and watched your economy be ripped to shreds. So, vote better. All right. Till next week. Y'all be safe out there.
Peace.